Welcome to Workplace Whispers with Dr. Olufemi Ogunlowo, where we tackle the most pressing issues in work, business, and human capital. Now, Dr. Ogunlowo is a seasoned HR expert and CEO of Strategic Outsourcing Limited with decades of experience navigating workforce management. Now, I'm sure you're excited for today's episode. Well, in today's episode, we are asking a very critical question. Is digital transformation overhyped? And then what's the real impact of technology change on people, culture, and performance? And to help us unpack this, we are joined by Mr. Olani Yusuf, the managing partner at Veraki Partners Limited, a seasoned transformation and change leader with over 2 decades of experience guiding major public and private sector organizations through strategic IT and culture shift. Well, my name is Praise Mba, and welcome to Workplace Whispers.
Thank you, Praise. Always nice to have you. And welcome the player to have you here today.
Thanks, Femi.
So, Praise, you said what again?
Actually, we're talking about digital transformation today, and I must say I'm super excited to be here. It's going to be a vast wealth of experience and knowledge sharing today. Mr. Nee, maybe I'll start with Dr. Ogunlowo first of all, because I'm sure that's what everybody wants to know. Digital transformation. Is it just a buzzword when it comes to the workplace? Is it even important, or are we just adopting foreign, semantics in Nigeria here?
Well, thank you, Praise. First and foremost, we must know that the future of work is changing, and the future of work is also here. And so the question is, where is the balance? It's not a buzzword, but for it not to be a buzzword for the individual would have to retool. Digital transformation, I'll leave Nii to even tell us what is digital transformation in the first instance before we now look at the impact of that on the employee and how the employee can position himself to be relevant in the future, which is already here. So, Nii, how would you define digital transformation?
Thanks, Femi, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. Right, so digital transformation is when you use digital tools. So I'm talking about mobile application, cloud, Internet of Things, analytics. When you use all that to transform business processes in a way that you are improving efficiency, you're radically redesigning the way you do things, you are improving employee experience or customer experience. I think for me, that's a critical aspect of digital transformation. But to your question of is it overhype, is it a buzz? Every technology goes through a cycle when you're just starting, and that's when you're at the peak, and then that's when it drops. And so I think Gartner also has what they call the hype cycle for technologies. And so there's a tendency for technology to move slow, get rapid adoption, stay at the top for a while, and then some new technologies will come and then displace it, and then it tends to go down here. But for digital transformation, I think we are just at the beginning, in my view.
So we've been talking about digital transformation for decades. It's just like you said, different maybe tools or enablers coming into place. There was a time that digital transformation was, for instance, centered on ERPs, enterprise resource planning applications. There was a time for automation, there was a time where even you will be thinking about procurement and be thinking about end-to-end. So, whatever it is, it's just technology. And using technology to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of business. The question here, which is critical, is where is the place of the human being in all of that process?
Right. So the way I think of digital transformation, I look at it from, I think there are like 5 or 6 core technologies that must be involved. The first is social, right? So your WhatsApp, your Facebook, your LinkedIn. There's some element of social technologies involved. Second is mobility. So there's some element of mobile technology involved. Then there's analytics. And with analytics, it's the ability to be able to get data, big data, and make sense out of big data. Then there must be cloud involved. So it's not something that sits in your room, but it's something that's available in the cloud. That means available anywhere and to anyone. And then that brings the fifth technology, which is security. Because you are going digital, because you are in the cloud, because you are mobile, that exposes you to a huge area of risk. And so there must be what you call cyber security to wrap around this. And then you begin to have things like artificial intelligence or machine learning, which are new. But the reality is the success you record in your organization depends on a number of things. It depends on how you've used technology to digitalize your operations, but also depends on the culture. And thirdly, how people embrace technology. And now that differs from companies to companies, right? So if you're in a company where you have digital natives, employees who are below 35 years of age, they are more likely to quickly embrace digital technologies than employees who are, in their 50s and above, right? And so culture is important, but also important is what you do to make people embrace this new wave and this new way of working. And so that talks about then the human element of it, because you cannot just put technology in for technology's sake, right? And so people talk about human-centered design. How's the technology designed to focus on the human element? Could be something as simple as the user interface, right? At the time, I wasn't wearing glasses. Now I wear eyeglasses, though I pretend not to, right? But the point is, the workplace consists of like 4 generations of workforce. Some use glasses, some don't use glasses, and so when you design your digital system must be such that it will have an intuitive user interface, what they call UI UX, user interface, user experience. That's just one aspect of it. Second aspect of it, right? It's and I use an example, one that's happening to me now. So if you take banking, right? So trying to open a bank account and using what's called their mobile app, and same process that I've gone through for 3 banks, I'm going through it for a 4th bank, and in a very painful manner. And I'm asking myself, I've done this thing, I've opened an account, I've opened a mobile app for bank A, for bank B, for bank C,
So
in same Lagos.
Different.
Absolutely. So it's the same mobile app, the same cloud, the same technology, but they've configured theirs in a different way that I've just found very difficult, and not just me.
No, is it also possible that it's difficult for you, but it might be difficult, it might be easy for others? Because I want to assume that in even launching that, they would have done user testing, right?
Right. So I think it's a mindset of user convenience versus risk management in this particular instance, right? So we've opened an account through the normal channel. You fill forms, you've asked for my BVN, you asked for my NIN. The only thing you didn't ask for was my mother's graduation certificate, and we've provided all that. Now to then, and we have an account number. So we've opened an account. Yeah. Now I could transact using checkbooks. I could transact by going to the banks, or I could transact using a card, or I could transact using a mobile app.
Correct.
So to now transact using a mobile app, you're asking me to upload certain documents.
Okay.
I'm like, why do I need to do that again? And I didn't have to do that with Bank A, with Bank B, with Bank C.
Okay, using that experience, right? The question for me will be the vision of the organization, right? Which is whatever it wants to achieve at what point, which is driven by supposedly the CEO. Shouldn't the digital transformation also equally, because of its weight, be driven by the CEO?
So truthfully, yes, any transformation to the extent that's going to affect the entire organization should be led and driven by the CEO, right? But the thing about digital transformation is, and I mean, like you rightly know, given your own experience too with Accenture, when you do process innovation, when you put technology in, your technology should be used to innovate the process. It's not to automate old, obsolete processes, which is what was done in this case. But you should use the advantage of technology to redesign your processes to make it more convenient. Use technologies to drive controls and not necessarily papers and co. And so it's you cannot slap on technology onto an old obsolete process that is not.
So, like, you are more or less not transforming,
Absolutely.
but you are basically just automating. So you are automating a process that is inefficient in the first instance, but using technology to drive it. So you may get efficiency, but you don't get effectiveness.
Absolutely. And it's what I call a digital makeup. So you've just done a makeup for that process, but underneath, the issues are still
So
there.
what question do you think a CEO should ask himself when he wants to embark on this journey of, I need my business to move to the next level, and I want to use technology to transform it? What should be the most critical question that the CEO should ask himself?
Right. So I think so technology is expensive. Even though now with cloud, with mobile app, you can do it in bits and pieces. And so the first thing to ask yourself is, why are we doing this? Yeah. Why this? Is it regulatory driven? Is it for efficiency? Is it to drive customer experience and customer acquisition? Or is it to reduce costs? And so once you know that, then the second thing is, what will change? Yeah. And it's a simple board. This is what we used to do before, and this is what we'll now be doing with technology. And we all know technology drives efficiency. So if this process used to be 10 steps before, with technology it cannot be 10 steps. I mean, if it's not 50% efficiency, you should be asking why, right? And then the third is having what I call some use cases, right? You cannot boil an ocean.
No.
Yeah. So you've got to have small chunks. So what use cases? Is it to drive customer experience? Is it in terms of payroll processing? Is it in terms of employee onboarding?
So basically cutting it into chunks, sizable chunks you
Manageable
can
chunks.
swallow, manageable
Absolutely.
chunks.
And that way you also can track the ROI. All right, so that it's not just the case of, I'm doing technology because the other company is doing it, or I'm doing technology because my competition is doing it, or because my CIO wants me to. No, I'm using technology and I'm seeing the ROI, and what you typically measure, so that once the first use case is successful, then you can move on to the second use case and you keep going.
So the question, therefore, is technology relevant to every company, to every industry, to every sector? Or it just has to be for the big boys?
In my view, every business is a technology business, frankly. I think there are, the way I think about it, there are 3 or 4 things every business needs to have. You need to have people. Yeah, you need to have technology. You need to have the right governance, and then you need to have capital. And then, you can then have a few other things. But every business is a technology business. So if you don't have technology, you can't run a business efficiently in today's world, right? What's the difference between my mom and my own company? The difference is technology. Yeah, so my mom has a shop on our street. So the entire market size for her is maybe the 1,000 people on that street. Yeah. She may have a shop online, Shopify, Instagram. What's that market size?
Well, everybody that has access to the internet.
Absolutely. And so that's why I'd say every business really is a technology business. Either the way you connect to your suppliers, the way you connect to your customers, to open up your market size, or even the way you operate things. Think about it. 2 years or so ago, or 4 years we had COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Could any business have survived if you really didn't use technology?
So that question is a question of yes and no, because you could argue that there were businesses that could not get on the bandwagon of the technology, right? And I think the most invasive technology of that time was conferencing, and all of those kind of things. But there were businesses who would say, look, I couldn't do my groceries on Zoom. I couldn't do transportation. Things couldn't happen for me. And so what's the benefit of technology for me? I run a business where I simply just can't use technology.
Well, I'm sure there are exceptions to every case. So yeah, there could be some neanderthals like that who really are not using technology. But if you go to the average market woman, people connect even on WhatsApp. You take a snapshot, a picture of the eggs you are selling or the clothes you are selling, and you broadcast it on WhatsApp. And people are saying, oh, How much is that? How much is that? That is using technology, social, right? So it's not necessarily when you use ERP, but say, when I was in Ife, for those who read computer science or engineering in Ife, in your year 1, year 2, you are using an IBM OS 360 big mainframe, right?
Punch cards.
Punch cards, absolutely.
Fortran.
You know, this
Yes.
is 1,000 times more powerful than that mainframe that we all queued
So
up
how
to
did we
use.
go to the moon? That's the big question.
So everybody is carrying a supercomputer in your what's it called? In your in your pocket. And so we should not think of computer and digital as this big thing. No. This in itself, it's a supercomputer.
So is it true that most people don't use up to 10% of the functionality of the tools they have in their hands?
I mean, so I'm not sure about 10%,
Okay.
but reality, the simple answer is yes. I mean, there was a time in the late 90s, we did a review of some banks in Nigeria and their core banking applications. And we realized no bank then used more than 40%, about 35-36% of the functionalities of a core banking application. Yeah, I mean, I certainly can tell you that I'm using less than 10% of
The functionalities of the
my
phone.
Yeah, but I'm sure she uses far
Maybe
more
she
than that.
uses 25%.
Yeah, absolutely, she uses far more than that.
Yeah.
And I'm,
With our generation.
you know, and I'm sure my kids will use much more than that.
So the question is, how can we get businesses to not even think that it's so expensive to use technology, because the one you currently have, you are actually not optimizing it. And so maybe starting from how can I optimize what I have to improve my business? Maybe that could be a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think the way to think about it is, do you want to be for one of the better word, I'll call it an asset light model. You know, so in the past you want to buy your computer and then you want to have a big data room. But today you don't need to own your own asset because things are in the cloud. There are providers, software vendors who can give you what they call software as a service. And so, in software as a service, you're only just buying subscription to the little that you need. And so that way, you increase your cost incrementally. So I guess the first thing is aim not to own. Focus on usage. And that way, even if you want to switch, because what you're not getting from company A is no longer useful for you, and company vendor B is giving you a better deal, you can switch easily if you've not acquired a large asset. So the consumption model or the ownership model has changed with digital transformation, and companies should follow that. That's one. Second is understand your business processes and see how you are actually using technology to drive those business processes. So it's not technology for the sake of technology, like the banking example that I gave. And if you then do that, you see that there are ways you can further optimize your existing processes using simple day-to-day technology that you've already purchased.
Okay, so we assume that technology is there. How do people then adapt? Because adapting to use the technology, there are many instances where companies have spent a lot of money implementing technological solutions, brought in consultants who have designed processes for them, but at the end of the day, really it's just on the shelf. So how do we move forward? How do we ensure that it's actually implemented? Because at the end of the day, strategy is actually implementation.
Yeah. So there are few buzzwords that I like to say, so pardon me. Right. So implementing technology is what you call your system implementation or system integration. But in addition to that, you've got to have disciplined project management. And then you've got to have what is called change management. And change management is how do you manage the process of change. Yeah. Yesterday, I was working using a big screen. Today, I'm going to be working using a small screen. That is change. Yesterday, I was the one in control. Tomorrow is the customer that will be in control. I mean, look at banking. How many times have you gone to
entered into a
banking.
branch
No,
of a
absolutely.
bank. Yeah.
So in the past, bankers were in control. The tellers were in control. Today is a customer that is in control. And so some people will fear that loss of control. And so that's why you need a deliberate change management policy. So a change management program to support the system's implementation. And if you don't have a deliberate change management program, because the change management was what allows you to move people from their current position to a new position. If you don't have that, that's what you call the valley of despair. See, I like to think that I'm a technology person.
Yes.
Yeah, but I struggle to change my phone. Yeah, and even to change from brand to brand, because there is that 1 week when I just struck. Where is A? Where is B?
Exactly.
Now that's what you call your valley of despair. And in any change, and so imagine that's just cell phone, right? I mean, so imagine now you're uprooting the HR application, or uprooting the finance application. People will have that experience of how do I press this? How do I find this? So that's that valley of despair. Now there must be deliberate effort to reduce that valley of despair. Don't let it be a long process. And so that's when you do training, that's when you do mentoring, when you are assigned a body, someone who's already vast enough to do it, that can support you. That's when you provide performance support too, so cheat cards, etc. But you just got to intervene to ensure that that valley of despair is a short window, and that people can then move and continue to use the application.
So could it be then that is actually probably one of the reasons why some technology projects don't succeed, because enough attention is not paid to the despair people might experience in adopting, the new technology?
Absolutely. We an example I like to use is in for quite a number of people in Nigeria. You spend money to buy this car, to buy this G-Wagon, and because it's an asset, something that you can see, so you don't find it difficult to write 100 million naira check. Okay, let me buy that car. Then when it comes to servicing the car, service is a service, not a product. You can't see it. I ask, why should I be paying that much to service the car, or why should I pay this much for comprehensive insurance that I may or may never claim? That's the way you also will look at change management. Is the comprehensive insurance, is the servicing that you give to your car
Intangible, but
absolutely,
yet extremely important.
and it's the icing on the cake that will then ensure that the investment in the technology, in the digital, really becomes fruitful.
So if we want to go on a journey, right, the company out there that is trying to separate itself, differentiate itself from competition, and has sufficient bandwidth at the management level to embark on that journey, what will be their first step in having a journey that is successful?
First thing is really just our vision, right? Have a vision of what it is you want to achieve, and the second is knowledge, and knowledge for me must also include knowledge at the board level. So your IT guys, your CIO, your young workforce, they get it, they understand it, but the people at the board are unlikely to understand technology as much as your workforce, and so there has to be a deliberate effort at education and letting the board understands the journey, the implications, the risk, and the challenges.
Now, if we want to, focus, say for instance, on the portion that drives the economy, right, which typically is the small and middle scale enterprises everywhere in the world. That's really the driving force, or the engine growth, for the country. How would this be relevant to them?
So, SMEs, any business has, your a business model, right? And that business model defines how you operate your business, what products, what customer types, what services, and how you make money. Yeah? But fundamentally, it's I get inputs. I process the inputs into some output that people are willing to buy, and there must be a way for me to then distribute my output to go and meet my target customers. And of course, you then get paid. Yeah. And so in that, there are opportunities to use technology. And I think the easiest one that I can show an example of is payment. Yeah. So maybe 10 years ago, how do you receive payment as an SME? But today, how do you receive payment?
Just say transfer it to me.
Absolutely. So it's account to account. Yeah. And if you're not doing account to account, you can say on my website, do Paystack or do Flutterwave. Because these are technology companies that have created a payment gateway. So you as an SME don't have to invest in your own gateway. You just need to connect to those payment gateways, and there are many of them, so that I'm not advertising for for particular ones. But that's one simple way, right? So if you take HR, you have candidate sourcing, you have applicant tracking system. Now, in the past, now may not be relevant to SMEs because they don't recruit a large army. So this is for corporate. But in the past, you need to have a big, broad spreadsheet. But today, there are applicant tracking system, ATS, that are owned by independent vendors that
So
companies can just subscribe to. And then you use it and you're game and dry.
And then you turn your cost to a variable cost.
Absolutely.
Because you only use it when you need it.
And you're getting high quality. Because that's the other thing. Talents are scarce. So there are not many excellent developers. Yeah. And so you can't say that you're going to be fighting to have these 2-3 developers in your company. Will be very expensive. But there are specialized technology companies who have created the right conditions to have some developers, and then they can churn out this product. And so that's payment example. I mean, there could be examples even with, initially I talked about WhatsApp, about marketing. SMEs now will use Instagram. They will use Facebook to market their product. They will use WhatsApp to market their product. That's using technology.
So without doubt, technology can help transform. How do we transform the mind of the worker to then accept that technology is not here to replace me, but technology is here to enable me?
They need to unlearn a number of things, and they need to learn new things, because technology is evolving, and so there must be deliberate attention and investment in training. Also in mindset interventions and training that can help to really give people a growth mindset, a mindset of I'm growing. And the way I can grow is by dropping some old things so that I have enough capacity to then embrace new things. Because if you don't drop those old things, you're unlikely to have the space to embrace new things. And the world is changing. I know what I've found most interesting is that at the end of the day, we are all selfish. Yeah, we solve for ourselves. Right? The guy who may not want to use technology at work uses technology at home. You know, so we've got to connect to what's in it for me as a user, as a customer, as a staff. Right. So management understands why they want to use technology. But you've also got to answer what's in it for every stakeholder. And once you answer that, then play to that. And that's what will then drive adoption. That's what will drive utilization.
After all, I mean, we would have said, the literacy level in Nigeria is so low such that adoption of mobile technology for businesses will be difficult. Adoption of technology itself, from the market-facing point will be difficult. But today, that's not the reality. The reality is that every person on the street, one way or the other, uses technology in his hand to do something.
Absolutely. And I think the reality is technology itself has become more user-friendly. We give the example of if back then it was punch cards. So you don't even enter the computer room. It was made such that it was only guys in.
You send your card.
Yeah, you send your card.
Run it overnight.
Absolutely.
So the question, therefore, is why should I invest in technology? It keeps changing. I spend money today on technology for my business, and then I wake up tomorrow it's obsolete. Should I therefore do it? What other options do I have?
So the question is, how should you do it, and not should I?
Okay.
Right? Because we're in a competitive world, yeah, and customers have options, and I dare say your staff, your people also have options, right? They can work for company A or they can work for company B. We've witnessed the jackpot syndrome. That's people, citizens exercising their option to stay in country A or to stay in country B, and so you've got to then make your company attractive to your staff, attractive to your customers, attractive to your shareholders. And investment in technology is one of the ways that you can make work easier and you can make your company attractive. So I worry more about how to invest and not if
Whether
to invest in technology.
So the question is not should I use technology? The question is how should I use technology to enable my business? It's been a very wonderful pleasure having you on this program today. And I think the conversation has to continue because there are a lot of other areas that we can actually touch on, especially to help businesses to understand how they can adopt and adapt to achieve their own objectives. So I believe that when we ask you to come again, you will find time for us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Femi, and thanks, Chris.
It's been a pleasure listening as well. And to be back to computer class, mainframe computers and all of that. A question maybe for our next episode would be maybe if you would trust technology to help you hire or fire a staff. Because I mean, there's been conversations around AI. I knew we were going to get there at some point, ChatGPT and all of that. In fact, OpenAI has another update. Now they can even generate images. You can do so many things that those routine tasks.
It is.
But maybe we'll talk about that.
It's happening.
Well,
I mean,
maybe the second episode is on.
I mean, AI agent. It's happening. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 3 will hire and fire for you. But for safeguard
Thankfully,
reasons,
you can't hire and fire my driver, right?
for safeguard reasons, we've got to put a space for human beings,
Exactly.
so that human beings can be the very last person to switch. But the technology exists today.
So we are going to be inviting you to have a conversation on that. Thank you so much once again and have a wonderful day.